Hello, everyone, and welcome to another MTE preview here on the Sports Daily Media Network YouTube channel. I'm your host, Sean Vowells, and as usual, I'm joined by Mike Koomar. Tonight, Mike and I will preview the Players Era Festival in Las Vegas. It's a new age MTE where the top four teams will come away with some NIL for their players. And Mike, this is an extremely confusing format, so let's try and describe how this thing is going to go. You have two pools of four teams, as you can see on the screen, the Impact Group and the Power Group. You will play two of your three opponents, and then based on record and margin, you'll be seeded 1 through 4, and then 3 days later on Saturday, you'll play 1 seed versus 1 seed, 2 seed versus 2 seed, and so on. And then the winners of those games will get NIL for their teams. So, Mike, thoughts on this event and this format?
Yeah, when I first saw this earlier this morning, I couldn't help but think Impact and Power Groups reminded me of the Leaders and Legends divisions in the Big Ten back in the day. Gave me a chuckle. This is a really interesting format. You've got a really good, a lot of recognition between all of these teams, whether they're
And the Impact Group, Mike, the best two teams in this tournament might be playing in the first game in Houston and Alabama. It's pretty clear that this tournament wasn't exactly seeded, and we've got a Rutgers team that gets to play Alabama. Notre Dame gets to play Houston and Rutgers, and it's not exactly balanced. And then in terms of the Power Group on the other side, Oregon gets Texas A&M and San Diego State, and it's just there's going to be two 1-1 teams, and one of them's going to get an advantage because of a margin of victory. It's not exactly a balanced schedule. It's not exactly a like if you come in the 2 seed, you might be better than the 3 seed. It's just a very interesting way to do this. I would prefer you play just everybody in your group and you see what you got, and then maybe 2 days off and then you play that fourth game. But I think we're going to find out a lot about Creighton because they did get their teeth kicked in by Nebraska, like you said. You would have to think that they should come out on top of the Power Group, and then they'll end up getting one of the best teams in the country in that third game if they do win that group. But Mike, who do you think? Give me your seed order in both groups here, and we'll see where we compare and contrast.
I think my number one in the Impact, number one overall has got to be Alabama. We've seen a lot from them already this year. They had a very impressive and convincing win against Illinois last week to get another top 25 win under in their belt. So I think they're definitely the clear-cut number one team. The number 2 team is definitely going to be Houston. This is a team that had that heartbreak loss to Auburn earlier, but bringing that experience of playing a power team and playing some good competition is certainly going to help them. And then my 3 is definitely going to be Rutgers. Very, really bad loss this past week at Kennesaw State, which is kind of a weird first road game, but that's who they chose, and they did not perform well. They lost. Still a lot of hype around this really young, really talented Rutgers team. We got 2 of the best freshmen in the country, so expecting to see more from them. And then Notre Dame. It kind of just seems like more of the same as they did last year, where Shrewsbury puts up a bunch of points. He's going to average 25 points a game this year. and Notre Dame is going to win 10 games. It kind of just seems like that. They lost by double digits to Elon last week at home, so really not very impressive. Don't know if you want to go ahead and do the impact.
Yeah, I got Houston winning like at 2-0. I also think Rutgers is going to upset Alabama. That Kennesaw that Alabama has not been good shooting the three this year, and you do have to make outside shots against Rutgers. So I think Rutgers will go 2-0, Houston will go 2-0, and Alabama I have losing both and coming in third, and then Notre Dame in fourth. 2 games in 2 days. Maybe you'd think, all right, it's harder to prep on Alabama on short rest because of how fast they play and how analytically driven their offense is. But I do think that Rutgers-Alabama game is one to look out for because you would think Rutgers shouldn't have much trouble with Notre Dame, and Alabama's going to have a whole lot of trouble with Houston, that's for sure. And then in terms of the other group, Mike, I have Creighton first, Oregon second, Texas A&M third, and San Diego State fourth. Again, I think Oregon's a sneaky team that might be able to do some damage against a team in Texas A&M and Creighton that have both shown some pretty big flaws. But what about you for this other group?
Yeah, I've got Oregon number 1, San Diego State 2, Creighton 3, and A&M 4.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, we're a little different on this one.
Yeah. Look, I can
really
see it.
Oregon,
I can see it.
As the top team. They had a nice little win against a much improved Oregon State team earlier this week, or earlier last week, rather. But you look at San Diego State. Look, they hung with Gonzaga on the. I believe that was a neutral court game. Given that wasn't Gonzaga's best game, but to me, Gonzaga's the number 1 team in the country, and they played pretty well against them. That's why I've got them too. Creighton, on the other hand, had a really bad game against Nebraska. Like I said, Kalkbrenner only 4 points. He's supposed to be your team leader. That's really concerning when you can't get him going earlier on in the year. And then I've got Texas A&M. Look, they got kicked in the teeth early to start this season. We'll see what happens. But, Sean, I've got Alabama and Oregon playing in my championship game. And I've got Houston taking on San Diego State in the second-place game.
Okay.
It's also so weird, this tournament, right, where you've got 2 days off in the middle of the tournament. Sean, we were talking about earlier. That's something we've never seen before, but maybe that gives teams time to get more well-rested and allows for maybe a little bit better viewership, not competing with Thanksgiving football. Regardless, I do think that this is a really unique format. We've never seen point differential. Usually in these preseason tournaments, what teams like to do if they get up big is throw in the bench so that they can rest up their players. Teams will be kind of forced not to do that in certain cases when you get to that second game. Like, you want to run up the score. So that's going to be kind of an interesting twist on things, kind of like BCS era in college football. I keep doing football references in this podcast.
And Mike, with both games not being at the same time, 2 of the 4 teams are going to know exactly what they need to do to finish a certain seed line. Yeah. So we could see some fouling up 11 if you need to win by 13 or something like that. They did make the change in soccer tournaments so that the final game would be played at the same time. So there was none of that. But if you see that, that is why. There'll be teams targeting a certain victory margin, or even a loss margin, Mike, if it is. It could finish that way. Every team could finish 1-1, and if you win your first game by 30, then you might be okay with a 6-point loss in game 2. And
look, we'll see if teams really are going to care about this. Like, teams might say, "Hey, look, I'm up by 15 points. Yeah, I get it. I won't go to the championship game if I don't win by 17. But I don't really care. I don't want to hurt my players doing something that, in the grand scheme of things, is meaningless in terms of your tournament resume." You may see other teams that really need that NIL money, so they're going to dig their heels in and win by as much as they can. So I'll be curious to see if this format backfires on the tournament organizers, but something we truly have never seen in college basketball.
Yeah, it truly is one of a kind. The games are on TBS, HBO Max, True TV, and TNT, and Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday. So a pretty interesting formula for this tournament. There aren't any like it as of now, but we're not ruling it out for the future. So thank you everybody for tuning in to this MTE preview. Be sure to check out the other videos on the channel. There's tons of them, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.